in the post-lunch session. I'm going to sort of step. What happened in the last session was, while there was a broad overview of what happened in Paris and post-Paris, Raghu's presentation talked about what the implications of the INDCs are for India. I'm again going to step back a little bit, give a broad overview of what the specific commitments that were made to 2 degrees Celsius and 1.5 degrees Celsius, what they mean globally as well as what they mean for India specifically. So, at the risk of sounding as if I am dismissing historical responsibility, unfortunately what we have to deal with and what is in some sense a concrete constraint on what we can do in the future is how much carbon space do we have left. And there are various ways of accounting for historical responsibility, allocating fair shares and things like that. But physically what we can do or cannot do is determined by whatever is physically left in the atmosphere, how much carbon space is left in the atmosphere, how much can we emit in the future. So between now is a bit misleading, it's 2012, that's my starting year. So between now and 2100, to stay below 2 degrees Celsius, that has been the long-standing goal in the negotiations, to stay below 2 degrees Celsius. And these are some of the numbers that Jairam also went through. I'm just going to take 4 numbers and work through what it means and what it implies for India based on these numbers. For a 50% chance of staying below a 2 degrees Celsius temperature rise from pre-industrial levels, we have about 545 gigatons of carbon. For a better chance, for a 67% chance, or a 2/3 chance, we have lesser than that. So it's a tighter cap, it's a more stringent target of 325 gigatons of carbon if we want a good chance of staying below 2 degrees Celsius. If we actually want 1.5 degrees Celsius and not 2 degrees Celsius, for a 50% chance, it goes down from what was earlier 545 to 242 gigatons of carbon, so it's halved. What we have left for the future is almost halved. For a 67% chance, what we have left, so if you want a good chance that we will stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius, what we have left for the future is only 77 gigatons of carbon. Given that what we have emitted so far till 2011 is 667 gigatons, the 77 gigatons for the foreseeable future is a really absurd number, and that is why almost all of the presenters and people who have commented in the morning sessions have said quite unequivocally that 1.5 degrees Celsius is not possible. A good chance at 1.5 degrees Celsius is definitely not possible. So what do these numbers mean? Jairam had that number up as well. 204 gigatons of carbon will be exhausted till 2030. We have now some estimates of what the emissions will be between now and 2030. We don't know what they will be till 2100, although we have all sorts of models that project this. These are all, of course, subject to a lot of uncertainties, and the projections are based on a lot of assumptions. But till 2030, people have made concrete commitments. Those commitments can be translated to what they mean in terms of emissions. So cumulative emissions implied by the INDCs between now and 2030 are 204 gigatons of carbon. So, with for a 1.5 degrees Celsius target, 67% probability, we had 77 gigatons, 50% 242, a good probability of staying below 2 degrees Celsius, 325, sort of a relaxed chance of exceeding 2 degrees Celsius, 500, slightly more than 500 gigatons of carbon. But of this, 204 will be exhausted. Now remember these numbers, 77, 242, 325, these are budgets available from now till 2100. This is how much we can emit from now to 2100 if we want to stay within specified temperature limits. These are hard constraints, not determined by what people can do, not determined by how much energy costs, not determined by how feasible it is, not determined by who is competing against whom in which market. It is a hard constraint on global emissions. We cannot emit more than 545 gigatons of carbon if we want at least a 50-50 chance of staying below 2 degrees Celsius. So of that, if 204 is going to be exhausted till 2030, then for the first case, we have actually negative emissions left for beyond 2030, which means the world as a whole, not just the developed countries. Even to expect just the developed countries to actually do negative emissions, which means not only stop emitting but remove carbon from the atmosphere, is a bit absurd. But in the first case, the world as a whole will have to do this, will have to find ways in which to actually remove carbon from the atmosphere. This first case is if, of course, we consider that the INDCs represent what will actually happen between now and 2100. The INDCs are low ambition. If you take the maximum that the developed countries have committed ever in the past, and you take that 80% commitment that they had in Copenhagen, that Angela Merkel had put on the table at that point of time, you take that's the maximum that they have committed to do in the past. You take that, the chances improve slightly. So, you take the first one. So from minus 127, you go to minus 98. You still are negative into the future. For a 1.5 degrees Celsius target, 50% probability, we have 242, but only 38 gigatons will be left beyond 2030. So most of 38 gigatons is actually almost nothing. What the developed countries are already planning to do as part of their INDCs is way beyond this 38 gigatons of carbon. Okay. Number only slightly increases if you actually have high ambition, and the highest ambition that they have shown so far from the developed countries. That's not really high ambition, but the highest that they have put on the table so far. It increases only slightly to 67, and that's 67 gigatons available to the whole world, not to us, not to only developing countries, not to only developed countries, but to the whole world. It improves slightly with a 67% probability for a 2 degrees Celsius target. It goes to about 150 gigatons of carbon and about 370 gigatons of carbon for a 50% chance that we will stay below 2 degrees Celsius. So there has always been a discussion about whether we should use a 50% chance or a 67. Even with a 2 degrees Celsius target, people are uncomfortable in saying that a 50% chance is enough. That a 50% chance is something that we should work with. We should actually people want a better chance of staying below 2 degrees Celsius, and it's obvious why. Because it means exceeding 2 degrees Celsius means a very, very high adaptation burden, and being a vulnerable country, we have to also worry about our adaptation burdens. But when it comes to mitigation, this is of course not possible. There is no way. It's not only difficult; it is actually impossible, because you need negative emissions into the future. There's absolutely nothing left. So a very good chance of 2/3 chance of 1.5 is not possible. Even the second one is actually not possible, because you can't do anything with 38 or even 60 gigatons. 60 is how much the developed countries are planning to emit in 15 years itself. That's 61 gigatons of carbon is how much the developed countries together are planning to emit just between now and 2030. So to say that that is how much will be available to the entire world to develop their infrastructure, industry, provide access, etc., is just not possible. It cannot be, something that developing countries will accept. So it's only the next two, the 2 degrees Celsius targets, 50% or 67%, that we can actually deal with. What does this mean for India? We have our numbers for total carbon budget for the world. If you take India's fair share and only of what is available in the future, you only take what is available in the future and say divide that on a per capita basis. don't consider the past emissions and things like that, and this is really problematic not considering that, because the total entitlement or total fair share that India would have would be much higher if you consider all emissions from 1850 onwards. Will be even not as high, but higher if you consider all emissions even 1950 onwards. So if I've just done a sort of back of the envelope calculation there, and at 50 rupees per ton of CO2, you have dollars. Sorry, that's how much it comes to. But you have so out of the 77 gigatons of carbon, you have
50 rupees. That's really selling it cheap.
Dollars. Sorry, that's not rupees. It's dollars.
Anyway, please.
So, so India's fair share only of this 77, only if you divide this 77 amongst all countries, is 13 gigatons, which is again quite low. 41 if you consider the next one, 55 and 93. Fair share of the future, that's from now to 2100. If you consider estimates of India's INDC, how much of this fair share that we had earlier, that we are going to exhaust by 2030, then we'll actually have to do negative beyond 2030. We'll be left with 6 gigatons beyond 2030 for the next case, 20 gigatons for case 3, and 58 gigatons for case 4. This is how much emissions we will have available to our disposal beyond 2030, if we consider different probabilities of exceeding either 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius targets. So you again see that the first one is absolutely not possible, so is the second one. Even the second one is absolutely impossible. What we can work with are only the remaining two, which are different probabilities of exceeding 2 degrees Celsius. And it's very clear why presenters in the morning have said that even 2 degrees Celsius is difficult, because a good chance of 2 degrees Celsius means very, very little space for countries such as India in the future. What does this mean for India domestically? So if you look at the first part of that curve, that's from 2005 to 2025, those are our emissions. If you consider an 8% GDP growth, as we specify in the INDC, need not be. You can do this with different rates, different numbers. These are just some scenarios that I'm presenting. If you consider an 8% GDP growth, then our INDCs, which say that we have to reduce our emissions intensity by 33% of 2005 levels by 2030. That's the first part of the graph that you see in that block. That's what we are doing. Then if we decide that we are going to peak in 2050 and then gradually decline post 2050, so apply the typical China plus 10 years rule, and you have something like this, then it means still a total cumulative emissions that of 138 gigatons that we are actually going to emit in that trajectory. If we have a sharp decline post 2050, it's still 110 gigatons. Similarly, peak at 2040, gradual decline, peak at 2040, sharp decline. If we want to stay below our fair share of the future, which is 58 gigatons of carbon, okay, for a 50% chance, then this is the trajectory. This is of course, these are, they're not very smooth curves because they're constructed by hand. These are just to demonstrate what are the possibilities. That's an emissions trajectory between 2005 and 2100. If you want to stay below 58 gigatons of carbon, okay, between what would be our fair share for the future. And this actually is going to be pretty difficult to actually get that, because what it means in terms of emissions intensity is this. You look at this is actually where you still, the point where you see the break in the curve is the actual decline that our emissions intensity has seen or will see between now and 2030. If we actually deliver on our INDCs, the first slope that you see before the break is actually a 33% decrease in emissions intensity of GDP. Then if we go on to meet world average levels, this is how our emissions intensity will look. If we go from that point to meet the average European levels of emissions intensity, that is how our emissions intensity trajectory will look. This is what we will actually have to do if we have a 6% GDP growth rate. Okay? This is what we can do if we have a 4% GDP growth rate. So we will have to reach levels of emissions intensity that are unheard of. We'll actually have to go to zero emissions by 2080, and that's of course something that everybody will have to do eventually if we are to stay within a carbon budget, say for some specified time. So these are again trends. What I have shown are trends if we have 58 gigatons available for the future beyond 2030. Now, while this is our fair share, there is absolutely very little chance that we will even get this. Okay. This is if India gets its fair share of future carbon space. Given the current INDCs by developed countries, it's very unlikely that we will get our fair share of the future. And even if we do, this still means a 50% chance of exceeding 2 degrees Celsius, which means a high adaptation burden beyond 2 degrees Celsius. And if we want to stay below, of course, almost impossible mitigation targets. Near zero emissions by 2080, if we get our fair share of the future, and if we are willing to take a high chance of exceeding 2 degrees Celsius. So we'll need rapid and steep reductions in emissions. Not possible only by efficiency improvement, obviously. There will be some gains, I'm sure, but not possible. So the question is how much renewable energy? There are problems of access, infrastructure, industrial growth that still need to be addressed, and it's not very clear how we will do this if we want to reach, if we have to actually follow a trajectory that looks like that black line. It's a decline in emissions intensity that nobody has experienced so far. I'm going to skip this and I'm going to talk about, go to my conclusions because I'm out of time. So there has been a tendency to severely underestimate the mitigation burden that India will have to undertake. While it's all a story, the story is that it's fine. This has opened up new opportunities, and we should actually look forward to what it means for employment and things like that. What we will have to do beyond 2030, because of the inequitable claim on carbon space from now to 2030. Beyond 2030, we will be left with very little, and the ask on us will be extremely steep and very severe, even with a 2 degrees Celsius target. Forget the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. So either high mitigation or adaptation burden. The intensity of how high the burden will be, either for mitigation or for adaptation, will depend upon our continued fight for equity internationally. Whether it is we've missed the bus on equity internationally is still the question. Whether we should keep fighting on trying to acquire either in terms of carbon space or in some other sense for equity internationally, because it will depend on how we go from here into the future. And while it is okay to say that we have to now think about what is the path before us in the future, we have to do this while acknowledging that it is not going to be easy. We have to put on the table that it is going to be difficult, it is going to take money, because one of the things actually everybody says quite easily that energy costs are coming down. You have reducing solar costs, you have reducing wind costs, but the fact remains that the capital requirement for these technologies is still quite high. You need high amounts of capital, and we are still a developing country, so where is it that we are going to actually source this capital from? You have India losing cases in the WTO because of its domestic content requirements. So you have pressures from all other sides. It's not only the climate arena in which the fight is going on. There are a lot of other areas where we are fighting. So that needs to be acknowledged. It's not as if because we have an agreement, the situation has become easier. It's actually we have an agreement, but because we have a bad one, we have to acknowledge that it has made life more difficult for us in the future.
Thank you.